Hey Sunshine, and welcome to the Dewless podcast, where we uncover and discover who we are through creating space to reconnect with ourselves. I'm your guide Bria, an involvement and life coach for moms. The key to you living as your authentic self is to evolve and witness. Now is the time to have courage and embrace change. Your relationship with yourself is the only true constant. Observing yourself throughout seasons of your life will allow you to always be in alignment with the desires of your heart. Before we get started, I have to remind you of your influence because you are an inspiration.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dewless podcast. It's me, it's Bria, I'm here. How are you doing today? How are you doing today? We are going to wrap up focusing on the house directory today, and I have some notes for y'all about the house directory because the home directory is all about the second layer of your life. This is the environment in which your body resides, and I love focusing on the body, focusing on you, focusing on what you can do to create better experiences for yourself. And I think going forward, because we're going to talk about weekly, monthly intentions and just intentionality in general, I think it was a great place for us to set the base for knowing about all the things that are going on in your life and having that in your awareness. So going forward, the information that I share with you and the resources that I share is going to make a lot more sense because we've already been percolating on that, okay? And so as we wrap up building this little directory for our home, I have a few questions just to remind you all of. And I don't want you to make this more complicated than it needs to be. And I'm going to share with you a piece of paper that I have right now about my home directory. So this is my home directory for this apartment that I'm living in. All the information that I need to know about trash, when rent is due, when they're not picking up trash, how to pick up a package, who to call, who to contact. It's all right here. It's all right here. And so your house directory does not have to be something grandiose, and it doesn't have to be this big thing. And so it can look like a piece of paper that you just, keep with all your important documents. It could be a digital version of this. So if you use Notion or any other note-taking apps, you could literally have it in your notes app on your phone. It doesn't have to be somewhere that you really, the only thing that I'm going to ask is that you have easy access to it. So when this thing comes up, you know where you wrote it, you know where to find it. That's the only thing that I ask you. So we talked about what information is going to be on there, and so I just want you to find a home for it. Where is the home directory going to live? And if you're living with your partner or you have children, if any information is on there that they would need. The way that I think about this is if when I was growing up, my mom had all the important information on a whiteboard on the fridge. If something happened, I know who to call. It was her phone number on there. I think my aunt's phone number. We all knew 911, but just having that information ready and accessible for when it is needed. And the last thing I just want you to think about is, how will you update this? How will you keep this updated if any information changes? So I just shared my home directory for this home that I'm living in. If and when I move, because this is not the end goal. When I move, I will have to build a new one, have to fill out the new systems that we're living in. And so we haven't really talked about this on the podcast yet, but change is something that we're going to get comfortable with, and just embracing change, and embracing that change brings clarity about the things that we want. These are all good problems to have. But let me stay focused for today. Today we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about you and creating a sacred space for you. So the way that I like to think about a sacred space is there's two things. And today we're going to focus on the internal, which is the mind, creating a safe space in your mind. And there's also a physical space, as in your environment and having a safe space for your body to retreat to. This could be a place in your home. This could be something else, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And so, have y'all ever seen that movie, The Secret Garden? I haven't watched it in a really long time. I actually would love to watch it. Not the remake. I have not watched the remake, but I judged the movie by the movie cover and it didn't look too appealing. So I didn't watch it. But I remember watching this movie when I was a kid and I was just like, oh my gosh, these kids have a nice little safe place to retreat to, and I want a secret garden. I still want a secret garden. And it's just like, oh, it's so magical, and like I would live there, you know, reading books in the secret garden. And so it's like, where can you create that mental space, that mental zone of your secret garden for yourself? That's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing to building a safe space in your mind is this: I am always aware of what senses are being stimulated. Because if you're living in a place where you can't physically go to a safe space, and I'm speaking to all the people who got a roommate like me, or who lived at home during the panoramic like me, having a mental space that you could retreat to is so good. And so when you're thinking about how your senses are being stimulated, and when I say your senses, I mean smell, taste, hearing, touching things, and what's the last one? Seeing things. So if something is off for you, or if something is not working and not allowing you to get to that safe mental place, change the stimulus. So like for me, I didn't want to see my family. I'm being quite honest. We're being honest here. I didn't want to see my family when I was living with them. I did not want to see them every hour on the hour. Like I didn't want to see them. So you didn't see me in the common areas very often because I just didn't want to be seen there. There was nothing there for me. It wasn't good for my, my mental. And so if and when I did go in those places, I was like, what would feel supportive? Some people would be like, damn, Bria, you rude. But no, I had my AirPods in. I don't care. This is how I stay in my mental space. This is how I stay in my bubble. And I've had experiences where professors used to come at me, talk about something, you're disrespectful for your having AirPods in. I'm trying to keep a safe mental place for me to feel safe, to show up here so that I can do what you're asking me to do. And yes, I'm listening. My audio is not even that loud. I'm still here. I'm still aware. And it's just like, where can you do that for yourself? And maybe advocate for that too. Like there were some professors who didn't understand it, and I walked out of their classes a few times. I did. I was like, if I can't do it the way I want to do it, I can't be here. You're asking for a lot now. You're asking for a lot. But okay, enough with my story time. How are you feeling in this space? And I mean like feeling in your body. How can you make your body 3% better? Like we don't have to shoot for 5 or 10, but just make yourself a little bit more comfortable. I always say this thing whenever my toes are cold, I'd be like, dang, my toesy woesies is cozies. And I'd be like, okay, let me find some socks, let me put my moccasins on, something, because like that would make me feel 3% more comfortable. And then like once that 3% is there, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good, can I focus? And then I'm like, well, my shoulders is kind of cold, let me grab a cardigan. So it's like those things about creating a safe environment so your mental isn't going crazy. And I know we talked about like de-stimulating yourself in the last episode, but it's also like, how can you make yourself comfortable to be in the environment that you're in? Because I can't change this environment. Yes, I can turn down the heat, my camera's gonna die. So the next clip might look different because I have to pause I have to charge it. Alrighty, don't be alarmed if you're watching this on the podcast, on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you're watching, if the clips were drastically changed. My camera battery died and I had to wait a whole 24 hours. I didn't have to wait a whole 24 hours, but we're back, okay, we're back. And I watched the last clip to refresh my brain about what we were talking about. And I want to take this to a place of what we're thinking directly impacts our actions, directly impacts what we do. So if we're aware of how we're feeling, and our thoughts affect our feelings too. If we're shitting on ourselves, we're gonna dig ourselves a deeper hole when we can be kinder to ourselves, right? And so when we're thinking about this internal environment, this mental space that we're choosing to live in, why not choose something calm and supportive? how about you be your best friend instead of the nagging kid in the back seat? You know, if we think about it as like, I get to choose where we're going and like I'm the driver in the car of my mind. I want to be my best friend who's sitting in the passenger seat right next to me, vibing out, listening to music, hee ha ha, laughing, giggling, you know, instead of the nagging kid in the back seat. It's like, where are we going? When are we gonna get there? Why is this music? Where's my snack? Bitch, we still not here. Like, hopefully no kid's saying that. But like, those are the thoughts that the nagging kid in my backseat. And I'd be like, okay, where can I create some certainty for my inner child and my inner critic and create a place of calm mentally for myself? And I brought up the 5 senses because sometimes overstimulating yourself, if we're not aware of what is stimulating us, it can aid in our mind being like a tornado where we can not even notice that these things are happening. But if we're aware of our senses and what is being stimulated, we can choose to create a better experience for ourselves. And so just like I said, we can create a better experience externally, we can also choose to think nourishing thoughts. I don't want to say think better thoughts or, you know, just throw all those other things in the trash that you're thinking, because again, I believe that that's your inner child coming up who is needing your attention, just like I talked about a few episodes ago about like the inner critic coming out in the mind, and some of that's usually the teenager in me, the sassy teenager, or baby Bria throwing a tantrum. And so it's like, where can I tell myself what I need to hear in that moment and hold space for myself? And so it's like thinking nourishing thoughts. And when I say that, I mean like talking to yourself. And so when you're throwing a tantrum mentally or you're being super self-critical, you can choose to talk back to yourself and be like, but Bria, we're doing so good. Like, I see you, I hear you, and I'm listening, but I also want you to be aware that you're doing great. And like, nobody's being hard on you, nobody's judging you. And so it's thinking kind thoughts and also encouraging yourself. And sometimes it can be hard to do this in the mental space where, like I just did, I have to talk out loud, because when you talk out loud, your mind slows down a bit. Even though sometimes it could be a lot, you know, a lot of thoughts going on, to actually say words, your mind has to quiet a bit. So when you talk out loud, and that's why I always would advise you to do self-talk, like actually talk to yourself, whether you're in a mirror or just talking to yourself in the room and just being like, we got this, girl, we're doing it, we're safe, we're supported, I trust you, like if nobody else does, I trust you. And like literally talk to yourself, because sometimes writing it, for me at least, it don't hit. And so it doesn't hit all the time. Sometimes it be doing what it needs to. But I'm just saying that is something that you can do to create a better landscape. The way that I think about it is that SpongeBob episode, you know, where like there's two things. So the one SpongeBob episode where like his brain is a bunch of people, there's a fire, people are like throwing papers, the filing cabinets, you know, it's chaos in the mind. And it's where it's like, okay, there's chaos, and your mind is waiting for somebody to be the leader, to be like, okay, everybody calm down, take a seat. You know, that scene in the movie where the character's like, everybody shut up, and everybody sits down and listens. Like sometimes your brain needs that, and maybe it's not the everybody shut up for the whole time of you like being on your soapbox. It's just like, everybody take a breath, calm down. What is the most pressing thing that we need to worry about right now? Everything else, we'll think about it tomorrow, we'll think about it later. And so it's like managing your mind in that way and creating a better landscape, because sometimes some things aren't necessarily a right now thing. We think it is, but it's really not that important at that exact moment in time. So it's like, okay, what is my one priority for the next 5 minutes? Choose one thing. And so that's how you can kind of create a better mental space when you put less pressure on yourself. And the other episode that I was thinking about in SpongeBob is that one episode where Squidward is in like that white room for like way too long, and like he's just there and he's the only person, he's like going crazy because like there's nothing. And so I think we have to speak to both sides of the brain, when the brain is going super fast and like overcritical, but also those times where you're feeling a bit of helplessness and being like, what's the point? And it's just like, having tools in your toolbox for you to do things, not to get out of that zone, but to hold space for it, will allow you to create a better internal zone. Because I be having days where I'll be like, I'm here. In those days, I put my AirPods in, I listen to some tunes, and I play my games on my iPad. Like literally, just play my games on my iPad. Sudoku, the little word flow, not word flow, but the flow game with the lines. Spider Solitary. Like those are the things where like my mind, when it wants to be in that blank space, and I just could care less about anything. I'm like, okay, cool. This is what the mindless things that we do. It's stimulating my brain, so obviously I'm doing something, but no effort, no physical exertion has to happen. And so like having those things to think about, because you don't have to always be on. You don't always have to be on. And I think as a person who is trying to learn how to sat down sat down somewhere instead of being so 100% go overstimulated, it's like, okay, just sat down. And it's like, okay, when I do sit down, what am I gonna do? Because there are moments when I just lay and I just be in my being, but most of the time that's like a good 10, 15, maybe 25 minutes, and it's like, okay, what's next? And so I find that having things to do in the time where I don't have to do anything for anybody else helps me. Even it's just like, okay, we're gonna do the puzzle for 15 minutes, or we're gonna paint for 15 minutes, or we're going to listen to that podcast episode, or we're going to watch that one episode or that one documentary. Like having things to do so you can feel supportive in creating a better mind instead of like over analyzing your to-do list, because it's like it's gonna be there tomorrow. And all the things that I just listed are things and ways for you to spend time with yourself. And if the things that I said didn't resonate with you, think about the things that you do already unconsciously when you go to unwind mentally. And it's like, oh, this is what I do. And you can ask yourself the simple question of, do I like doing this thing? Is this something I want to continue to do? And like I said in yesterday's episode when we were talking about making simple decisions and just would you rather, it's a simple yes or no. If the answer is yes, I like doing this, don't create problems where there aren't problems. Don't try to make a problem out of nothing. Let that be your one tool in the toolbox that you know you can rely on. And yeah, that's that. So I just want to give you the next 3 minutes to marinate on everything that came up for you in today's episode and give you some time to think about what are some ways that you mentally decompress and mentally create a safe space for yourself to retreat to when you don't have a physical space. Tomorrow we're going to talk about actually creating a physical space that is supportive, but mentally, how can you go to places to retreat and go to your happy place when there's either people around or you don't have a room or a place, a physical place, but it's a place that you can go to and an energy that you can create inside of your being. So that's what the next 3 minutes are for, and I will see you tomorrow.
anything resonated with you during this episode, pass it along to a friend. Let's continue the chain reaction of inspiration. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can stay updated with all things Dewless Bloom by joining the Village Community email list. The link is in the description below. I hope that today is everything you needed to be and more, and remember, you are an inspiration.